Hey, what's up guys, it's Hedrymas here with another video. So this video is going to be a guide on how to play Outlaw Rogue. Outlaw is in my opinion the easiest rogue spec to play by far, and it's a great spec for beginners. So first of all, we'll go over the most important part, which is the talents. For the first row you want to go for Quick Draw. This makes you generate one additional combo point and do 50% more damage whenever you consume an opportunity proc, giving you 3 combo points baseline instead of 2 when using the proc. You can also go for Weapon Master, but overall you'd be losing damage, so I wouldn't recommend it. Your third talent in general does way less damage than the other two, so you shouldn't consider it at all. For the second row you want to be going for whatever you prefer. Acrobatic Strikes is great on AoE and bosses, where sometimes you have to spread out or move a little bit away from the boss since it increases the range of your attacks. Retractable Hook, it's gonna reduce the cooldown of your grappling hook by 30 seconds, so basically reducing it by half. This is great for bosses like Fetid Devourer, where you get knocked back every 30 seconds. Then you have Hit and Run, which increases your movement speed by 15% at all times. This is great if you need to run around a lot or when you have to follow mobs that are being kited. I personally use Hit and Run most of the time, but it's up to you. The third row you'll be going for Vigor. It increases your maximum energy by 50% and it increases your energy regeneration by 10%. This is going to give you the most damage out of all the talents, and it's also the easiest to work with. Then you have Deeper Stratagem. It's going to make your rotation a bit slower because you don't have the extra regeneration, plus you can't pull as much energy, but in general you'll be doing less damage with it. If you have very weird stats on your gear, you might want to simulate this to see if it actually does less damage. The last choice is Marked for Death. You shouldn't really pick this talent. It can be good in certain situations with dying ads like on Zul, but it requires a lot of micromanagement to make it really worth it, so in my opinion it's not worth it at all. You could use it for world questing because you can open up with 5 combo points, but other than that it doesn't have that many uses. Then for the fourth row, it's personal preference again. Iron Stomach is mainly for leveling since you can heal up quicker after fights with Crimson Vial. Cheat Death is great for encounters where you would normally get one shot or for soaking extremely high damage mechanics. Elusiveness should be used on fights where frequent high damage is happening. For example, on Vectus, if you have the debuff and the boss AoE is incoming, if you have elusiveness you will barely take any damage as opposed to dying or nearly dying. In the end you should choose whatever you think is best for the encounter. For level 75 talents you usually want to go for Prey on the Weak. It makes everyone do more damage for 6 seconds when stunning a mob, so it's great on encounters like Sekfos. Blinding Power can also be used on a fight like Zul, where you need to CC the mob outside of the group. In this case range and cooldown reduction really helps. Then Dirty Tricks is completely useless in PvP and you should avoid it completely since it doesn't really provide you with any benefits. Now for the level 90 talents you should go for Alacrity. This is gonna increase your haste by about 10% for the entire time after a ramp up of about 5 finishers, giving the most DPS out of all the talents. Then you have Loaded Dice, which basically removes some RNG from Outlaw. In general it does way less damage than Alacrity, so you should be going for Alacrity anyway. Then you have Slice and Dice. This removes the RNG from Outlaw completely. This makes the gameplay super simple, but it does less damage on average than the other options, so I wouldn't pick it personally. Then the last tier has 3 options you can actually consider. First of all, Dancing Steel increases the duration of your Blade Flurry and makes it do more damage. This is great for fights with constant AoE like dungeons or raid trash, but it gives you no single target damage at all. Then you have Blade Rush, which is also going to give you AoE damage. It does more AoE damage when you have Blade Flurry up, so make sure you use Blade Flurry before using this if you use it in AoE situations. In general, this is going to do a bit more damage than Killing Spree, and it's more sustained damage, but Killing Spree is going to give you more burst damage, which in general is really good for fights like Zul, where the ads come up, or Fetid if you need to destroy an ad as well. Then you want to go for Killing Spree since it provides you with way more burst damage than Blade Rush. For the gear you mainly want to go for Haste, after that it's Versatility, then Crit and then Mastery. You should simulate your character of course when you have a new gear piece, because if a gear piece is a 10 item level upgrade with bad stats, it can still be an upgrade over your item with best stats just because of the agility. Now for the rotation it's pretty simple. The main idea is that you build combo points with Sinister Strike and Pistol Shot if you have an opportunity proc, and you spend them on Roll the Bones if you have a bad buff and 4 or more combo points, which I'll go into in a second, or on Dispatch if you have good buffs and 5 combo points. Besides that, you're going to use Adrenaline Rush on cooldown together with your Killing Spree or Blade Rush depending on the talent you picked. For AoE, it's basically the exact same rotation with the only difference that you activate your Blade Flurry. It's giving Outlaw a super easy AoE rotation since you just do your single target rotation. Now let's get into Outlaw's main mechanic, Roll the Bones. Whenever you use Roll the Bones as your finisher, you're gonna gain 1 to 5 buffs out of 6 different ones. You're always gonna get 1 buff. You have a 90% chance to get another buff and a 1% chance to get 5 buffs. So the list of buffs from best to worst is: first you have Ruthless Precision, which increases your crit by 20% and your crit chance with Between the Eyes by 40%. Then you have Grand Melee, which gives you 25% leech and 55% attack speed. Then you have Broadside, which is going to make your generators generate 1 more combo point and make them do 20% more damage. Skull and Crossbones, which increases the chance your Sinister Strike hits twice by 30%. Buried Treasure, which is going to give you 4 energy per second. And then True Bearing, which is going to reduce the cooldown of some abilities by 1 second per combo point spent. And this includes Adrenaline Rush. Now with Roll the Bones, the idea is that you don't reroll your buffs if you have 1 buff, that is Ruthless Precision or Grand Melee. If you have 2 buffs, any buffs are fine, even the worst ones. Then you don't reroll either. And if you have 5 buffs, of course, then you definitely don't reroll. You want to be tracking these properly so you can see quickly if you should reroll or not. The way I track them is with little squares representing the different buffs. Left top is the best and the right bottom is the worst. That way I can easily see if I need to reroll my buffs or not. If you have Ruthless Precision, you're going to want to use Between the Eyes as a finisher on cooldown, since if it crits, it's going to deal 4 times more damage than a normal attack, as opposed to 2 times more damage. If you have the Azerite traits Ace Up Your Sleeve, you also want to use Between the Eyes as a finisher on cooldown, as opposed to Dispatch, since the extra damage to pistol shot is going to give you more overall DPS. Now for Azerite traits, you want to get at least 1 Laser Matrix or Archive of the Titans for the buffs you're going to get within Uldir. If you don't raid, then don't worry about it too much, since the stacking buff every week doesn't really work outside raid anyway. Then you're going to want to get a Deadshot or Dagger in the back. You can also get Snake Eyes, but this is going to depend on how many of them you can get, since if you only get 1 of them, it's worse than most trades. For the other trades, you should just check Blood Mallet, since it's not realistic to farm a specific trade with the current system, and this side is going to help you decide which trade is going to give you the most damage. Anyway guys, that was it for the guide. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I'll reply as soon as possible. If you like the guide, consider subscribing if you want to see more, like the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.